Hi, Disam. Thank you for joining. Morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Hi, Mena. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, I think I'll just go ahead and start. So, Demsal, Kalezi, and Mena, thank you so much for joining today. I hope you can hear me clearly. I'm so excited to be hosting another live, hi, Dikbo. Thank you so much for joining. So I'm so happy that you're all joining me here, and thank you so much for joining my last IG live about how to create compelling resumes. So I'm super excited to be hosting another IG live session. So I have my slides on my other laptop, so I might be turning to the left. To the right. Sorry. Hey, thank you so much for joining. Ibokun, thank you for joining. Or let me just use my main laptop. Sorry for moving this around. All right. Okay, so I think I have a perfect spot for my laptop and phone. All right. So thank you so much for joining. Yes, we are live. Hey, IK, thank you so much for joining. So I'll just go straight ahead so that I don't take too much of your time. So I'll just do a little bit introduction about myself. So my name is Grace Efezokai. I was born and raised in Nigeria. I'm a chartered accountant and I currently live in Canada, precisely in Ontario. And I work for one of the Canada's biggest banks in the capital market division, where I manage the financials of all the regulatory projects that affects the bank in North America and Europe. And it's been great so far. And yeah, so I'll just say a little bit about also why I'm doing this. So before I got this role, I used to work for a fintech company and I was really happy there. But then I went for an event and I met someone and they wanted me to apply for this current opportunity that I'm currently doing now. And they told me they were going to help me prep for my resume and they were going to help me prep for interview. And I had 2 prep sessions with like 2 of them and then 1 of them. And it was just so great, like so good. And I was like, hey, what have I been doing all my life? And I decided to call all my friends to like, hey, who's going for resume prep, or who wants to do resume prep, or revamp your resume, or who has an interview to attend. I'm going to help you. So I just was trying to like pay it forward, like what I've learned, because I just felt like it was just so the information was so good that I needed to share that, right? And it became something I enjoyed doing, like a new hobby I found in 2021. And I had people coming back, people wanting to pay, so it became a monetized service. So I just felt like I should come and share all that I've learned. So last week was about the resume, so you can always watch the IG live. The replay is available on my IG page. And today is going to be about interviews, like how to sell yourself at an interview, how to go prepared, and all of that. And first thing I would say is that interviews can be very nerve-wracking. Like if you have thank you for joining, Odion. So when you have an interview, there's the nerves, there is the, am I going to do well, all those kind of things, right? And it's normal to feel that way, but you still need to go to an interview with preparation. You still need to go for an interview with so much confidence. So I would say that even your Obama, all those great guys that you see that they speak really well, they still have their little nerves before they get onto the stage. So it's pretty normal, but you need to still go for an interview well prepared. And also I'd like to emphasize that interviews are a two-way street. Like the company is checking you out and you are also checking them out as well. So go there and make it as conversational as possible, right? And I know that especially when you have moved into a new country, there is a time when you are just trying to like get a job just because you need to pay the bills. And another time is about how to now start building your career, right? So we'll just go right into, I have 7 tips that I'm going to share today about how to interview well. And one thing I want to emphasize is that these are just tips that could help you, go for an interview well prepared and be more confident. And if you have any questions, please just drop them in the comment box while I go along. So the first tip is about how to prepare for an interview. I know it's very cliche, right? Like when you say, I'm going for an interview and they ask you, are you prepared? Of course, you are going to prepare, right? But I'm going to give you like steps that you need to take cognizance of as you're going to prepare for an interview. So one of the things I want you to know is that I want you to understand the job description. So there's always a job description for a role, maybe when you applied or if your friend had referred you for the role, there's a job description that you need to have gone through. You need to understand line by line so that you know what the company is looking for. And that helps you when you are on the day of the interview, when they ask you, like, tell me about yourself. You need to tailor what you say about yourself to the job description. So you need to fully understand the job description. The next is you have to research the company and the product, and the industry that they operate in. I know it's very cliche, right? Like, research the company. Won't you know what the company is doing? But you need to research the company. And when I say research the company, not just the generic stuff that everybody knows, right? So if you are going to, let's say you're interviewing with Dangote Cement or Lafarge, you already know that they are doing cement. So you need to know beyond cement, what do they do? What other service offerings do they have? What other product do they manufacture, right? You need to understand that. You need to know what the company is doing. Go to their website, check their page, check their press releases. What are they recently talked about? What is the company currently doing or working on? You can also go to Google and go to Google News and see what's the latest thing that this company has done. Maybe they recently donated $10 million into maybe COVID relief for a particular country, right? Or they recently acquired a smaller company, or there's so many things that you could know about the company, right? Not just the generic things like, oh, I want to work for example, I want to work for KPMG. Everybody knows that KPMG is a big four accounting firm. Everybody knows that KPMG is a global company. So you need to know beyond all those basic informations, right? And then understand their product and services. If they have new product offerings, have an idea about that as well. I thank you for joining Don Dang and the real Alimit. I really appreciate you joining. And then you also need to research the interviewer. You must have gotten an email that shows you where your interviewer is, who he or she is, right? So you need to go to check their LinkedIn profile and understand what they've done, how their career has evolved, within the company. You can also Google them to know maybe they were recently at a panel or anything. Hi, I'm Fanny. Thank you for joining. So I'll give you 2 tips. For my current role, I checked out the person that was going to interview me, right? And I saw that she was leading a particular regulatory project in the bank. So I'd gone to read up about it. And in the interview, I asked her, so tell me about this transition project and how it has been going for you. And she was really excited to share all that information with me, right? It was like a soft spot for her. And another guy I was interviewing with, I checked that, I saw that he was recently at a panel. And I actually checked what he said. He was on the panel. He had made a particular statement, and in the interview I asked him, hey, I saw that you were recently at a panel in XYZ conference in Cayman Island in March, and I saw that you said, and the guy was like his eyes just went up. We were like, oh, what do you think about what I said? What do you think about the conference? Something that was not there. We had to just show genuine interest in also the people that are going to interview you. And if you're going to be interviewing for a remote job, let's say you are currently in Ghana and you want to apply for a job in Canada, you need to understand cultural nuances, right? Understand that, like, a recruiter in Canada was recently talking about an interview she had with someone, and she said the person couldn't look right into her eyes. I don't know if I should take off my glasses. Okay, let me take off my glasses. So she said that the person couldn't look right into her eyes, and she felt that the interviewee was timid. And to me, I just felt like maybe that person was from Nigeria, where in certain cultures, you don't look into the eyes of an elders, and she was just trying to be respectful. But this other person is thinking, oh, she must be timid. So you need to understand those cultural nuances. And for Canadians like small talk. So if you're going to have an interview with a Canadian company, ask about the weather. Like, oh, how is the day going? How is the weather over there today? all those kind of things, it sets the tone for the interview. And if you're going to be doing a virtual interview, understand that you have to be there 5 minutes before the time, right? Get the right spot in your house, the right lighting, the speakers, and all of that. And your dressing, don't take the fact that it's a virtual interview, just go anyhow. Make sure that you wear, at least looks for your first headshots style, right? Make sure that you're looking really good for an interview, like you're going for an in-person interview. And one last thing I will say about preparing is that for an interview, you don't need to cram anything. There's really no need for you to cram, because what people do is that, actually when it's a virtual interview, they already have like sticky notes. And then when they're asking you a question, I can see your eyes going somewhere. You don't need to cram anything for an interview. You only need to have a strategy on how you are going to structure your answers. So that's about preparing the interview, the first tip I shared. So we're going to go to the next tip. On the day of the interview, you need to arrive early. If it's a virtual interview, you should be 5 minutes in before the interviewers are going to join. And if it's an in-person interview, make sure you arrive early in person. You see all those LinkedIn posts where they'll say, oh, somebody came 15 minutes late and she said her dog was maybe sick. So empathy, kindness, one thing. See, just leave all those LinkedIn influencers alone. Make sure you arrive early, virtually, in person. Please arrive early and be relaxed, right? Smiling helps. If you're going for an in-person interview, from the person you meet at the front desk, smile to the person. It helps you, it helps you relax. It takes away the nerves, right? So be relaxed, engage in conversations, listen to an interviewer. If you're doing a Canadian interview, connect with your interviewer, like I said, with small talk. Like when they join, you already know their names. Like maybe you know this person is, somebody's going to interview you named Tracy. And then Tracy comes on call. Like, oh, hi Tracy, how are you doing today? Don't give one word answer. They say, or they ask you, the interviewee, like, how are you doing today? You can say, oh, I'm very fine, thank you. How is your day going? Or how is work going? And and if it's a Friday, you can say, oh, it's Friday, I'm so happy it's a Friday. What's your plan for the weekend? And they can tell you, oh, I'm going to go for a wedding. You can always, that's why I say, make it conversational and say, oh, great. Like weddings are always fun, right? And then you need to keep your interview, you need to be very conversational in your interview. Be relaxed, calm, smile, like take away all those nerves, and you can set the tone from the interview, right? From the beginning, when you start asking how they're doing, and be genuinely interested about them, like, oh, how do you enjoy working from home? All those little discussion is a big deal here in Canada, right? So it depends on the country where you're interviewing. You need to be cognizant of those things and have a positive attitude. Even if maybe maybe one of the interviewer already giving you a negative vibe, don't let that show on your face. You need to show a positive attitude, energy. Even you have to show that you're excited. Like, oh, I'm really excited about this role. I'm so happy to be here. Oh, I was really looking forward to this interview. Or you can say, I was very excited when I got the invite for this interview. Show those excitements, right? And even if it's a phone interview, even though they can't see you, let the tone of your voice show some form of excitement. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments section. So those are the things that you need to understand in the day of the interview. Like, positive attitude has to be from the beginning to the end. Even when they ask you a question that kind of throws you off balance, don't show defeat. Like, never ever. Like, if they ask you maybe, oh, what is XYZ, and you don't know it, and maybe you're trying to like bamboozle your way around it. Maybe like you've been very happy and excited, and then because you can't answer that question, you now do your face one kind, like you now start feeling like, I didn't answer that question well. Don't let it show on your face. When you go home, you can go and tell your friends and cry to your friends that, hey, I did not answer that question well. But on the day of the interview, you need to be positive from the beginning to the end. Even if the interview is not going the way you want, just show a positive attitude, right? So now we've talked about the tips you need to prepare for an interview, and on the day of the interview, the things that you need to take cognizance of. I'm going to go to the third thing. There are popularly asked questions like, tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume, why would you like to work with us? So I'll just go through each of them briefly. And one thing I want you to say is that, like I said, you don't need to cram anything. You only need to have a structure on how you want to answer these questions. And you need to be able to spin a story around it. So the most popular one that they ask is, tell me about yourself. I know that tell me about yourself, at that point, they want to know whether you are a fit person for the role. So it's an open-ended question. Don't go blabbing about how when you were 10 years old, your father's friends looked at you and said, you'll be an engineer in future. Or all those stories about how you now start talking about how you wanted to how you studied maybe medicine in school, how you studied microbiology, and talk about the process, right? You don't need all of that. So tell me about yourself. There are different ways that you could do that. You could talk about maybe your work experience, your academic qualifications, why you're interested in the role, and all of that. But the strategy that I use, and I think it's really good, is I have a structure. So I have 4 things I talk about. I give you an overview of my career so far. Oh, over the last 10 years, I've done this, that. And one of my greatest accomplishments is seeing my client do this, right? And you can say, oh, in my current role, you give an overview, like a really nice overview, and everything has to be tied to the job description. Like I say, like, what are they looking for? So you need to tie your tell me about yourself to that. So if you give an overview, you can now say, oh, in my current role, what I bring to the table is this, right? And yes, and finally, go straight to the point and don't tell far-reaching stories. Yes, and don't talk too long and everybody's just like looking at you like, when is this guy going to be done? Like, I read something about a guy that's answered tell me about yourself for like 20 minutes. It's not supposed to be, right? Keep it short and be very strategic about what you say. So like I said, overview, in my current role, what I bring to the table is this, and then you can now say what I'm currently looking forward to is bringing my expertise to this company, mention what the company does or what the company is looking for and how you fit the bill. And you can also talk about your personal interest, and don't just go and start saying some very weird personal interest, something corporate interest kind of thing, like, oh, I love to read books and I'm currently reading a book, Empire of Pain. Is an investigative, actually I'm reading that book currently. Empire of Pain is about the opioid crisis in the US. So make yourself interesting, make yourself memorable, right? And when they say tell me about yourself, you need to be very careful with the language that you use. Oh, as a Nigerian myself, we say basically a lot. Try to avoid saying basically in an interview, and I'll give you a reason why. Basically should be used when you are trying to like simplify a process for someone. Like, oh, let me tell you how to cook jollof rice. So basically you need to get rice and beans and or rice and pepper and tomatoes and all of that, right? So when you're talking about yourself, try to avoid basically. It's like there's nothing basic about you. Like everything that you've done, it was not basic, right? So be very careful with using words. Don't use words like assisted or I supported. Say you were in charge. I was in charge of this. I was in charge of this. Say in charge instead of basically, or the value I brought to the table. I know I was so good at this that my manager recommended me for this, or I improved this particular process. Don't use the word basically or supported or assisted. Use very strong action verbs. Oh, I collaborated with this great team to do this and that. So you need to be very strategic about tell me about yourself. So when they say walk me through your resume, also I know I've made that mistake too. I'll turn my resume into a staircase and start carrying you from the first time when I left school, my first degree, and start walking you. No, it shouldn't be that way. You can talk about your accomplishments, right? Why would you like to work for us? Don't say the generic stuff. Oh, because your company is great, because your company has a great brand. They already know all those things. It's more about what are you going to do for them, right? So why would you like to work for us? Oh, because I have great experience in this, and in all these 10 years of my career, I've done this that will be of value to the company. You can tie it to the company's goals and objectives. Like maybe this particular bank ABC now. Bank ABC has one ambition 2050 project. And then maybe in that one, they are trying to build this, whatever. Try to tie it to that as well. Like, oh, because I have this great experience, I'm going to be of great value to the company. Everything has to be value. What value are you bringing to the company, right? Thank you for joining Moyo and Inyoma. I really appreciate it. So why would you like to work for us? Like I said, don't go through the basics like, oh, you're good, you have a great brand, you are the best in the industry. No, tie everything to what you can bring to the value you're bringing to the table. And you can also talk about maybe like their CSR activities. Like, oh, I also saw that you recently sponsored 10 million girls, you're planning to sponsor 10 million girls in Africa education, and it's something I've always been passionate about. I like to be associated with a company that is into, try and tie everything into what you are going to do for them. Don't say they are great, there's a great company, they're the best in the industry. They already know that. Or you say, oh, why would you like to work for PwC? I like to work for PwC because it's a big four. It's not new information, right? So don't say all those kind of generic stuff. So when they say your strength and your weaknesses, try and spin a story. Oh, this. Try and spin a story about it. And don't go extreme. When they say what's your weakness, oh, my weakness is I like to come late. No, I used to come late for a work meeting. No, you don't need to do that. Keep it simple. If you say maybe you have maybe like managing time, blah blah blah. You also talk about the things that you're doing to improve that weakness, but don't make it something outrageous, right? Something really simple. And if they ask you, oh, what's your management style? Or what's your preferred management style? That's if you're interviewing for like a managerial role or a non-managerial role. Like if you ask me what's my preferred managerial style, I can say that, oh, in the course of my career, I've worked with like different managers with, different management styles, and I'm able to adapt to each of them and thrive. But the one that I really my preferred one is when a manager gives me challenges, gives me opportunities, blah blah blah, and they can now spin a short story, not long story. Or keep it short and brief, right? Straight to the point. Like, oh, in my current role, my manager does this, right? So those are things, the popularly asked questions. Everything has to be tied to the value that you're bringing to the company. Don't say basically. There's nothing basic about your resume or anything, right? So show that your value. So I've talked about popularly asked questions, or when they ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Tie it to the company as well. Like, you want to, even if after the company, maybe your plan is even staying with the company for 2 years, or try and tie it to the company of how you're going to be everything. Even if you have you're going to have your personal career goals and aspirations, like, oh, I want to complete my CFA, I want to become a chartered accountant in the next 5 years, I want to study maybe data analytics. Still tie everything that, oh, it's going to be of great value to the company, so that where do you see yourself in 5 years, talk about yourself, but still tie it to the company. And then I'll go to the fourth one, behavioral questions. Try to practice those before time. Like when I say practice those, try to think about stories. I know some people are really good that when they go for an interview and they say, oh, tell me about the time when you had conflict with this, how did you handle it? Some people are so good that they will come up with a Hollywood scripted story. Like, it will sound so believable and great. Not everybody has those skills. So what I always advise is, if you're currently interviewing actively, try to check for all those popular behavioral questions. Laulu, thank you for joining. And behavioral questions, and try to like create your scenarios. Like, think there's always a time, like you can't have been working in a place where you didn't have a conflict with someone, right? So talk about the situation, what was the action that you took, and what was the result. Keep it simple, right? But always just tell a story around it as well. And if they say, tell me about a time where you made a mistake at work and how you handled it, don't go and start talking about one big mistake that you made, that maybe you now lost a client. No. Or you can't say, oh, you did something and the office burnt. Don't go extreme. Talk about a time where you made a mistake or you mixed up something. What they want to know how you manage your emotional intelligence. Like, how do you handle relationship with people? Those are the things that are trying to like test. Like, tell me about the time when you made a mistake. Don't go extreme. Or tell me about the time when you had a deadline that you couldn't meet or something like that. Try to keep it simple and always make sure that there was a win-win at the end of your story. Like, oh, maybe this was the mistake that you made, and then going forward you were able to do one thing, so that to avoid other people from making that same mistake, right? So be very specific and straight to the point. So I've talked about 4 points already. So I'm going to go to number 5. The don'ts at an interview, the things that you should not do, things that you should not say. Like I said, you should maintain a positive attitude all around. Even if they ask you a question that kind of puts you off balance, maintain that positive. Don't dampen your face like, God, your face, especially for people like me that are very expressive. Don't let it show on your face that, oh, you feel like maybe you fumbled at that particular question. And then when they ask you, why are you leaving your current job? Don't talk bad about your past or current employers. Even if your employer has been in the news for something bad, So remember this CEO that fired, is it 900 employees on Zoom, right? So even if somebody is coming from that kind of company and they ask you why you leaving your current job, don't say, oh, my boss was this. Imagine you even hired or fired 900 people. You don't need all of that. Why are you leaving your current job? Keep it simple and straight to the point. Oh, you just want to, you've built this great career over there, it's been great, but you want to try something in a different industry, you want to try something challenging, or you did a career plan for yourself for the next 10 years, and this, and the company will fit into the bill. So tell your, like my therapist told me, always tell your story from a place of empowerment. Even if you've had a bad career journey, don't tell your story in a powerful way. Don't try to, like, how will I put it now? When you're telling your story, don't try to feel like you're defeated or you're feeling sad about your past. No, tell your story from a place of empowerment. Never talk bad about your past or your current employers, even if they have been in the news for the worst thing on earth. Never ever talk bad. Even if the interviewer, that is the person asking you questions, even knows your boss, that, oh, that guy, and even if the guy says, oh, I know your boss used to be a very difficult guy, don't support him. You can just smile. Don't go and say, yes, a very difficult man. The man, see what he did. You don't need all of that in an interview. And another thing I'd like to emphasize is don't over-apologize for your career gaps. Life happens to each of us. Maybe you took 3 months off. Maybe you were laid off at your former job. Don't over-apologize for it. So they ask you, so tell me about this career gap. Don't start going into stories. Like I said, don't be apologetic. Oh, I took that time off to take care of my kids, and now my kids are 3 and 5 and they're doing well, or they're in school, or blah blah blah. Or I took 3-4 months off to be a stay-at-home mom, based on a family decision. Simple. Don't go into so much details. Or I had to take care of a loved one who was sick for a whole year. I had to go back home to take care of him. Simple. And now he's doing great, he's better, the whole family is fine now. Simple. Don't start saying into stories, he was now sick, he was now this. You don't need too much stories. Or if you were laid off, don't feel bad. Like I said, like my therapist said, tell your story from a place of empowerment. So you were laid off at your current job and you've been waiting for like 6 months, and then you have this interview. Don't say, oh, I was laid off, I know they didn't like me there. You don't need all of that story. You're not the first person to be laid off in this life, and you will not be the last. So you were laid off and they asked you, so tell me, explain your career gap. Oh, there was a business restructuring at my company and I was part of the employees that were laid off. Don't show like you're sad about it. No, straight face and tell them life happens, right? So don't over apologize for your career gaps. It's no fault of yours, especially if you've moved into a new country where you haven't even gotten what you really wanted, and then you're currently doing like a bridge job. Don't start over apologizing. It's not that, I've not really found what I like. You don't need all of that story. So that, and then another thing is, try to avoid personal sub stories, talking about yourself. Like, I know people always say, oh, vulnerability, but you need to, whoever you are going to be vulnerable with needs to have earned your trust, kind of, right? So don't go to an interview and start talking about, oh, I suffered a breakup last year, so I have to take some time off work. Or you start getting personal details like, oh, my parents were going through this one, family was going through a rough patch. Try to avoid personal sub stories. And don't, like I said, same thing, like don't discuss personal topics, like just personal things about yourself. Don't get too personal in an interview. Even if the person is getting personal with you, try to create that line that, see, don't go above this. Like, you don't have to start saying stories about, oh, I met my husband, yeah, I met my wife. You start going to stories. You don't really need all of that, right? So yeah, let's go to the next one. Number 6, questions for the interviewer. When they ask you, so do you have any question for us? Thank you, Fumi, for joining. Do you have any questions for us? Please always ask a question. Never say no, like, oh no, I don't have any question. Please ask a question. And like I said when I was talking about preparing for an interview, ask informed questions, not questions that you could have Googled and say, oh, so tell me more about your product that you offer. You should have seen that on the website. So ask informed questions like, oh, in your interview, when you were doing your research, the company recently acquired ABC company. Ask them about the acquisition. How has the acquisition been? Blah, blah, blah. or they have a new product offering coming up next month. You can ask them that, oh, I see you are trying to launch a new product in 2022, and then your competitors are doing this, so what's your plan? Ask them interesting questions, like questions that, oh, this person sounds like they actually took their time to research about us and the company. And you can also mention something that was said in the course of the interview. So you have to be a very good listener. Like you can say, oh, in the course of the interview, you mentioned XYZ thing. Can you shed more light on that? It sounds really insightful or exciting. Blah, blah, blah. Ask that. You can ask, so how is your team structured? I'm really excited about this role. I'd like to know how the team is structured. What are the goals for the team in the first, maybe in the next 1 year, or in the next 90 days. Ask those kind of interesting questions about the value you're going to, it's still centered around the value that you're going to be bring it to the company. Another question you can ask is, I know people always ask, oh, what's your favorite thing about working here? That's great, but it's becoming too cliche. So you can flip it and say something around, oh, maybe you must have always check who's interviewing you. Like, oh, I see that you've spent 10 years at the company. How has your career evolved over the years? Has it met your expectation? Then we can now start bringing, oh, I've seen you spent 10 years over the company, and you checked their LinkedIn profile, and I see that you've moved like 3 roles within these 10 years. What's your favorite thing about the how your career has evolved in the company? And like I said, always research your interview. Let me emphasize that again. That's the best time for you to now start bringing up something about, oh, like the guy I told you about, like, oh, Paul, I saw that you were on a panel in Cayman Island for this particular conference, and you mentioned this at the panel. Shed more light on that. I'd like to know more about that, right? And my current role, I asked her, so you lead the labor transition project. So how has that been going on for you? And that was a soft spot, right? And I remember the other person I was trying to like prep for an interview. So we had Googled who was going to interview her. And the woman is all this gender equality, people that fight for gender equality, fight for equal pay between men and women, right? So we had gone to check all the articles. And then when the person went for the interview, she was like, when they say ask me questions, she had asked about the company, her career. And then she mentioned that I see that you've lived in 3 different countries. So, and I know you also you're very vocal about gender equality. What has been your blah blah blah? Ask the question around it, and the one was like, "Oh my God, like you really read the article. What do you think about the article?" So people like when they're genuinely when people are genuinely interested about them. So that can be another tip for you that you can use in your interview. And also mention something that you've read in the news, the acquisition thing, or new product offerings and all of that. Ask them questions. Don't go and ask them bad stuff, like maybe they laid off 100 staff. That's not a time to bring it up at an interview. So look at the good stuff, right? Or, oh, there's this regulatory change in your industry. How is your company preparing towards that? Blah blah blah. Ask them questions. Ask very informed questions. So when it gets to that stage of questions for the interviewer, please always ask a question, and ask informed questions. And then the last point is, after the interview, what happens? Now you've done the interview, and always thank them. Okay, before I go to the 7th point, always thank them for their time. Like maybe when the interview is wrapping up, so thank you so much. If it's a physical interview, if you're going to do a handshake, shake them very well. Thank you, it was really great having this interview with you. Or I really appreciate your time that you spent with this interview. All those kind of things, right? Thank them for their time and all of that. And then the last point is, after the interview, what are the next things that you should do? Is send a thank you, personalized thank you note. It's not a guarantee that, oh, because I didn't send thank you note, that's why they didn't call me. But you can send a thank you note. A thank you note is just saying that thank you for your time, and make it personalized. Don't just make it generic, like, oh, thank you for your time with the interview, it was great talking to you. No, be specific. Hi, Tracy, it was great having a chat with you about the role. Thank you for shedding more lights or giving me more insight about the role and what the company does. I really appreciate you taking time to mention a specific thing that you are discussing in the interview, so that you are listening. And for example, if the person had said, oh, maybe over the weekend I'm going to go for a wedding, you can say, have fun, and you'll have a great weekend, and also have fun at the wedding with your family. let them know that, oh, this person was genuinely interested, listening. So don't just make it generic. Oh, thank you for your time, bam, like a template. You need to make it very personalized, and you need to calm down. I know that there's always the tension of, oh, are you going to get a call back, blah blah blah. Try to come out after your interview. And the last thing I will say is that don't take rejections personal. I know that this IG life was supposed to be, is actually not supposed to be. It's an IG life about tips that you could use to land your dream job. And even when, especially if you moved into a new country, when you've applied for a job and maybe you're not getting any call back, or don't take rejections personal. You need to understand that you are the value, and that you are the value is a constant. The rejections doesn't diminish the value that you have, or the value that you bring that you can bring to any company, right? So don't take rejections personal. That you are the value is a constant, and always understand that an interview is a two-way street. Make it very conversational. You need to be excited about the role, show enthusiasm, right, in your tone, in your body language, and have a positive attitude from beginning to the end. And I think that comes to the end of the IG live. Like I've walked you through the 7 tips that you could use, or things you could actually consider when you're going to apply, when you're being called for an interview. And I really wish you all the best. And also, I run a paid resume writing service. If you want to edit your resume, or you want me to sit down with you to discuss about your resume, I'm available for that. We can have a consult. We'll sit down to discuss about your job, and then I'll help you revamp your resume. That's about 120 Canadian dollars. And if you want just a consult on how you can just go about it, maybe writing it yourself, I can have is 75 Canadian dollars. We can have like 2 sessions, but the combined time is 90 minutes. It could be maybe the first 60 minutes. We can discuss about it, to work on it, come back in 30 minutes. And if you want me to join you in your interview prep, I'll actually sit down with you. We'll actually go through popularly questions that you could be asked about the industry, the company, and everything. I charge for that as well. It's like $50 per hour. So I know that this is like, Christmas is already here, so I'm shutting down for the year, but you can always book me ahead, and I'll be happy to work with you. And since I've not seen any question, nobody asked any question. Let me see. So if nobody has any question, I think I'll just end the IG live. What question? The real, please, can you type your question? I've checked through the question, I can't see it. Or you can send me a DM and I will answer you there. All right, thank you so much for joining my IG live. The replay is going to be available on Instagram and YouTube, and also my IG live about how to create a compelling resume is also on my page. I deeply appreciate you staying with me and sticking with me through this IG live, and thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. Thank you. Bye.